Hey everyone, it is week 2 and today I'm going to try and go out to Davenport Beach and shoot an area called Shark Fin Cove. I have a new microphone, so hopefully you can hear me a lot better this time around. It's already looking pretty gray. Today might suck. We'll see. Alright, so I'm just arriving in Santa Cruz and looking at the clouds right now, it's looking like it might actually end up being a pretty cool sunset down at the water. I still have about 20 minutes to go to get to Davenport, which is where Shark Fin Cove is. So hopefully things won't change much by then, but we'll see. Anyway, this is looking a little more promising, so I'm a little more excited about the potential to create a cool image with you guys tonight. So let's go. Bundle up since probably gonna get cold. I actually brought sandals and a towel just in case I need it, but I don't think that's gonna be the case because I don't know if the tide is that high today. We'll find out. I might regret it here in a minute. The funny thing about popular photography spots is you know, you arrive and there's a bunch of other people there with the same idea, tripods and cameras out. One just walked past me. There's another one already here set up. So we'll see how it looks. I'm still planning on going down to the water. But since I'm up top, we'll take a look at that first, see how it's looking. All right, so here we are, Shark Fin Cove. You can see some of the other photographers over there. One guy has a drone. As cool as drones are, I'm still not entirely sure I like them. Okay, after walking around a little bit, you know, this is a great photography spot. Clearly, it's been photographed millions of times. There's people shooting it right now. But my whole idea behind doing these videos and sharing them with you guys is to get down into areas that are a little more interesting and not so much just park on the street here 100 yards from where I'm walking and get your camera out, but to actually climb down and get a closer look and really create something more interesting. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to head down that way. You got to watch your step. Slipping on this would be terrible. Okay, see, this is already a more interesting photo to me. Rather than being up top, to be down here. Something here could be really interesting, but it's not. That'd be for another day where I plan ahead a little better. All right, this is the shot I'm gonna go for. This is much more interesting to me than being up top where you can see people up there. We still got some gray clouds, so the weather report that I looked up wasn't wrong. I'm gonna plant down somewhere here in the sand and try to line up a shot. Okay, so last week in San Francisco, I mentioned that that was my good tripod and I had a crappy tripod. So as you start building up a whole bunch of gear, you're gonna end up with different things for different uses, right? So this is my older tripod. It's aluminum. It's what I use when I shoot at the beach because I don't mind getting it wet and hosing it off when I'm done. So this is what I will be using today in the sand because it's going to get a little more beat up and I don't want to do that to my carbon fiber one since that one's probably $700. So the other thing you guys are going to want to really pay attention to when you're shooting on locations like the beach, specifically the beach, is where you set your gear down. So right now my camera bag is about 5 feet up on the rocks and it doesn't look like the water line is going to come anywhere near here. Honestly, the water would hit me since I'm going to be over there before it would hit my gear. But that is something you really do want to be hyper aware of because you don't want a bunch of salt water on your gear. Then it's just destroyed. Okay, so this location is looking like it's going to work pretty well. Last week, a few people asked me to talk a little bit about the gear that I was using and give a few pointers. Now, it sounds super cliche, but realistically, the best gear you're going to use is whatever you have with you at the time. I'm actually shooting with a Canon 5D4 and a 16-35 f2.8. Honestly, you can probably create this photo with a Rebel and a kit lens. The settings I'm going to be using are no different than what you're able to get on an entry-level DSLR. You don't need something like this one. It's just what I have and what I use for my job. And not that I'm that close to the water this time, but if you'll notice, I have my camera strap completely wrapped around my lens. That's so it's not dangling in the sand or the dirt, or in this case, the ocean. If I was a little more over in the tide pools, then it would definitely be a concern. My camera would probably be more at ground level. I'm safe this time, but just as a note, in case anyone was wondering what this is about. All right, so it's getting a little closer to sunset, which means the tide's coming in a bit more, so we're getting some bigger waves. This is always a good time for me when I try to find a different location to shoot. Like I said last week, I always try and find 2 photos. I have one photo lined up right there that I think will work. But like last week, you know, I might end up going with the second one. So what I'm thinking is right here. A vertical shot. We'll get the tide pools in the foreground with a lot more focus on those. And then the rocks out there will be secondary. If I'm lucky, I'll get a little bit of water around the edges. So we'll try that one in a couple minutes. So I'm going to call that first shot done. So now I'm walking around with my camera trying to find that second shot. So I came over here to look at that vertical that I was thinking about. And I actually do think I like it. I'm a little close to the water, which makes me slightly nervous, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my tripod, I'm going to come over here, I'm going to line up the shot. So we're going to go for another vertical this week, but that's fine. I don't do a lot of vertical photography. Everything I end up doing is usually horizontal. I like to do a lot of panoramas when I do landscape, but at the same time, that's always done. What I'm also thinking is later this summer, I'll keep a better eye on the tides and try and do a photo down there in between the rocks shooting out. I've seen that photo done here before. I think it's gorgeous and I think I could do a good job at it. So, whoops. Anyway, that's a project for like July. So if you noticed a little bit ago, I'm wearing my backpack again. Part of the reason is now I'm on the other side of that big ass wall. And I don't want to leave a bag full of very expensive gear where I can't see it. It's not that I distrust this other photographer, it's everybody else. Photographers are usually pretty respectful of other people, which is great, but you just never know. Okay, so I think I got my shot squared up pretty well right here. The hard part is that I'm shooting fully wide, 16 millimeters right now, so I'm not going to have any wiggle room in the final shot. So this is where it's really important to square up your tripod and your shot in camera. Obviously it saves you what, all of 3 seconds in post-processing, but again, if you're going to need every possible pixel in post-processing, you're going to want to make sure you have it right in camera at the location. All right, so I'm already really digging this shot in camera. The clouds are still looking great. I'm going to have some awesome browns and some greens that I can pull out in post in the rocks here in the foreground. The water in these tide pools is very still, so I'm getting some nice reflection of the sky. But again, it's that right time of the evening that I'm going to get a lot of motion in the water because right now I'm shooting at 1/3 of a second exposure at f/22. So I'm going to get as much sharpness as possible, but I'm also getting that little bit of drag of the shutter to get some of that motion in the water that I want. So another note when it comes to framing your shot. Now, if you look at some of my past photos, I do a lot of very low angle when I'm at the beach because it's more interesting. It's not a view that we normally see. I'm 6'2", so my view tends to be downward compared to a lot of people. This shot is actually going to be a downward shot. So I'll put it up on the screen right here, the final version. So now if you look closely, I have just a little bit of separation in the water between the rocks out there and the rocks here, just a little bit of the water cutting through the middle. I framed it that way purposely because if it was any lower, all we would see is rocks, and that's not what I want. So right now, exposure is probably exactly where I want it. I have a feeling one of these photos is going to be the final one that I can edit from a single frame, single image, not need to stack anything or layer it in Photoshop. We got some oranges coming through right now in the sunset, which is helping illuminate some of the rocks here. But we still have some blues from the water, some blues in the reflections here and the tide pools. So it should be a really great shot. What I gotta wait for, and hopefully it'll be in the next couple minutes, is some great motion in the water, maybe a little wave or something splashing over the edge. We'll see. Okay, so before I was talking about water and getting splashed and everything like that, so if you can see, we just had a massive wave come in and get all the way to my tripod. Fortunately, I'm still dry. My neighbor isn't, but I am. The great part now is that we're gonna get some really cool water washing across the rocks. So that could result in some really cool motion. We'll see how it works out, but I think it's gonna look really cool. All right, so I'm trying one more shot tonight. This is going to be a horizontal style shot. We've got some water here on the left, got the rocks on the right. I think you can hear the splashing. This position's a little more precarious than where I was, but it might work, and hopefully we'll get something cool. My main concern right now is that the sun has set, so I'm not going to get any more yellows or oranges unless I really want to fake that in post-production, which I don't think I want to do. The result of that is that this would be a very blue photo, and I already did a blue photo last week, and I'd like to try and do something different for you guys this time around, but we'll see. So this is one of the most interesting things to me when I come to shoot at the beach. Now that the sun is completely down, you might notice it's quieter. The waves have actually gotten smaller, and the tide's gone down. So I've missed my window, or I didn't miss, but my window to shoot is now pretty much done. It's totally dark out, totally blue, which would result in a photo like last week. So I think I'm gonna call it a day, go home and see what I got, and hopefully I got a great image for you guys this week. Don't want to get splashed by a wave. And I think I lost a cap for my tripod. All right, so it would appear that I did in fact lose one of the feet to my tripod. So one casualty, a very small one this week for this outing. Whoa. Now one last note as I head out. Last week when I left, it was actually pretty dark, and I see pretty well in the dark. Apparently not well enough. I almost took the wrong turn. It's still bright out this week, but just to remind everybody, pack a flashlight, not your cell phone, an actual flashlight to use when you're hiking out. Last thing you want to do is get stuck in the dark and have to rely on your cell phone. All right, that's it for this week. I'm packed up, about ready to head out. Gonna head home, download my images, check out what I got. I'm gonna add a little bit after this to share and discuss any of the images that I was able to create, maybe discuss a little bit of what went into them. But if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. This was a cool location. I think it worked out really well. Next week, I'm actually gonna be in Lake Tahoe, so I'm gonna be doing some snow photos. So those of you that are interested, follow me, subscribe, any of those things, watch me on Facebook, and keep an eye out for that video. Thanks again. Night. See these old railroad tracks? Pro tip, never take a model out to railroad tracks for photos. It's cliche, everyone does it. Boring. One last thought as I'm walking to my car. Pick out all of your gear and pack before you leave the house. I am literally carrying all of my gear in my camera bag because I didn't want to leave it in my car along the side of the road.